Dog can't get struck by lightning. You know why? Because he's too close to the ground.
Who are you, Luther Haggs, to be guest speaker at this luncheon?
These babies can go off. Now...
Don Knotts was an all-time great comedic actor who spent his life on screen bringing joy and making people laugh with his unforgettable performances. He is best known for portraying the endearingly silly and funny character of Sergeant Barney Fife on The Andy Griffith Show. While he made a career out of other people's happiness, his personal life was a series of heartbreaking events. Stay with us as we uncover the story of his multiple marriages, children, tragic demise, and the legacy he left behind. The legendary Don Knotts. Jesse Donald Knotts, known by the stage name Don Knotts, was an American character actor and comedian. He was born on the 21st of July, 1924, in Morgantown, West Virginia. With few advantages in life, he was the youngest of 4 sons of William Jesse Knotts and the former Elsie Luzetta Moore. Don's birth was unexpected, considering he was born 14 years after his next closest sibling, and his mother was already 40 years old at his birth. His early years were marked by hardship and fear. They struggled to make ends meet and gave up their farm just 1 month before he came into the picture. Unfortunately, growing up poor in Morgantown, West Virginia, wasn't the worst of their troubles. Knotts' father, William Jesse Knotts, was a very messy man who suffered from schizophrenia and alcoholism, and was often bedridden by the time Don was born. Terror was a daily part of Don's childhood. His father reportedly threatened him once with a knife, causing the young boy to be scared. It's no wonder that as a young boy, Don was already pale, thin, and frequently ill. But there was a turning point for young Don. When he was 13, his father passed away from pneumonia, lifting what his daughter Karen later described as a huge burden from his shoulders. Though still poor, Don became old enough to stand up to his remaining brother, and he was no longer terrorized at home. As he entered high school, something remarkable happened. He became class president, wrote a yearbook column, grew popular, and made a best friend for the first time. Still, the wounds of his early years left their mark. Even with all this positive attention, Knotts himself said he felt like a loser. Being poor and physically smaller than his friends, he probably felt insecure. To cope with his difficult reality, young Don turned to his imagination, filling his world with made-up characters and happy dramas. Around his early teens, he invented a ventriloquist's dummy and called it Danny. With this dummy, Don began performing, taking his first steps toward a career that eventually brought laughter to millions. After his freshman year, he decided to join the U.S. Army, but nobody expected the military to accept such a sickly, undernourished young man. But they did, finding the perfect place for him. From June 1943 to January 1946, Knotts served in the Army's Special Services Battalion, touring the Pacific as part of the comedy troupe Stars and Gripes to entertain American troops stationed overseas. During his military service, Don caught the attention of an older comedian named Red Ford, who commented on him. He told Don Knotts that he was a funny boy, and those words stuck with him for years. By the time he left the service, Knotts had moved beyond ventriloquism. According to fellow performers, he grew to dislike his dummy, Danny, eventually throwing it overboard from a ship somewhere in the South Pacific, symbolically leaving that chapter behind. After the military, Knotts returned to West Virginia University, graduating in 1948 with a degree in education. With just $100 in his pocket, he headed to New York City to pursue his dream of making it in show business. Like many aspiring performers, he faced immediate rejection, being turned down for numerous radio gigs before landing a spot on the soap opera Search for Tomorrow, where he played the nervous Wilbur Peterson from 1953 to 1955. It took 7 years of struggle before Don secured a role on Broadway and began to gain attention. That play, No Time for Sergeants, paired him with a co-star who became a lifelong friend, Andy Griffith. From there, Don started building a reputation as the perfect person to play a certain type of character: nervous, anxious, and non-threatening. Here's where Don Knotts discovered an unexpected advantage. His small, thin, nervous persona made anyone he shared the screen with appear more commanding by comparison. This quality was what became central to one of the most successful partnerships in television history, The Andy Griffith Show. In 1960, Andy Griffith started his own sitcom, The Andy Griffith Show. Don Knotts then approached Griffith and jokingly suggested himself for the role of Barney Fife, deputy of Sheriff Andy Taylor, portrayed by Griffith. Griffith immediately recognized the potential and agreed. What followed was television magic. The Andy Griffith Show premiered in 1962, with Knotts playing Deputy Barney Fife, a character whose self-important, romantic delusions, and nervous energy created the perfect comedic counterpoint to Griffith's steady, wise Sheriff Andy Taylor. Though the show was initially intended to feature Griffith as the comedic lead, with Knotts as his straight man, it quickly became apparent that reversing these roles worked far better. The character of Barney Fife connected deeply with viewers. Self-important, romantic, and nearly always wrong, Barney dreamed of being a big-time lawman while bumbling through his duties in the small town of Mayberry. Barney was so prone to accidents that Sheriff Taylor allowed him to carry only one bullet, which Barney kept safely in his shirt pocket. Audiences fell in love with the show, and with Barney Fife in particular. Within just 3 weeks of its debut, The Andy Griffith Show rocketed to the #1 spot, setting a record for the fastest rise to the top in television history. It even outperformed Bob Hope's legendary show in audience surveys, an achievement no other program had managed at the time. For his portrayal of Barney Fife, Don had to look older on screen compared to his actual age. When The Andy Griffith Show debuted, Don was only 37 years old, and not the middle-aged deputy he so convincingly played in the show. To bridge this gap, the show's makeup department worked serious magic. Every filming day, Knotts underwent a transformation through makeup applications that aged his face. Combined with his expert physical comedy and mannerisms, the illusion was complete. Viewers had no idea Don wasn't the nervous, twitchy, middle-aged man they saw on screen. For his portrayal of Barney Fife, Knotts won an astonishing 5 Emmy Awards for Best Supporting Actor in a television comedy. Other acting roles. Don Knotts left The Andy Griffith Show in 1965, believing the series would end after 5 seasons. By the time Griffith announced his decision to continue, Knotts had already signed a 5-film contract with Universal Studios. Don saw this as his cue to leave the show, so he left, believing he would get better roles for his film career. Knotts went on to star in a series of family-friendly film comedies that built on his high-strung persona from the television series. He had a cameo appearance in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World in 1963, and then starred in The Incredible Mr. Limpet in 1964, in which he played a meek man who is transformed into a fish. The film's early mix of live action and animation was groundbreaking, influencing later films like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Space Jam. His Universal 5 film contract included The Ghost and Mr. Chicken, The Reluctant Astronaut, The Shakiest Gun in the West, The Love God, and How to Frame a Fig. When these films were aired at that time, they weren't popular, but over the years, they gained recognition for their unique portrayal of Knotts' masterful comedy. In fact, many modern comedians cite these films as major influences. Jim Carrey once told an interviewer that when he met Knotts, he immediately thanked him for The Ghost and Mr. Chicken, saying, "I watched it 100 times when I was a kid." Similarly, Martin Short has acknowledged Knotts as a significant influence on his comedy style. Don Knotts still returned occasionally to The Andy Griffith Show as a guest star, even though he left the show officially a few years back. These subsequent appearances also earned him 2 more Emmy Awards for his impeccable performance. He also appeared in the spin-off Mayberry RFD, where he served as best man for the marriage of Andy Taylor and his longtime love, Helen Crump. Though Knotts had hoped for major film stardom, His post-Mayberry career was marked by a series of projects that, while they didn't reach the heights of his television success, showcased his unique comedic talents. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, he even served as the spokesman for Dodge trucks, appearing prominently in print ads and dealer brochures. In 1979, at age 55, Knott returned to series television in a role that introduced him to a whole new generation of viewers, the wacky but lovable landlord Ralph Furley on ABC's hit sitcom Three's Company. The series, which was already an established hit, added Knott to the cast when the original landlords, Stanley and Helen Roper, left to star in their own spin-off series. As Furley, Knott sported loud leisure suits with ascots, thick glasses, and a toupee, portraying a middle-aged bachelor who fancied himself a ladies' man while remaining comically unaware of his tenants' schemes. For Knott, who had typically worked in Disney comedies and other family-friendly fare, appearing in what critics called Jiggle TV, an intimate comedy centered around a man pretending to be gay to share an apartment with two attractive women, was a major departure. He embraced the role with his characteristic energy. On the set, Knott easily integrated himself into the already established cast, though according to John Ritter, they were initially intimidated by Knott because of his star status. When Suzanne Summers left the show after a contract dispute in 1981, the writers began giving material originally intended for her character to Knott's Furley, expanding his role. Don remained with Three's Company until it ended in 1984 after 8 successful seasons. This role brought him to a new audience who might not have been familiar with his earlier work as Barney Fife, confirming his status as one of television's most beloved comic actors. Knott reunited with Andy Griffith in 1986 for the made-for-television film Return to Mayberry, reprising his Barney Fife role for the last time. From 1988 until 1992, Don joined Andy Griffith again on the legal drama Matlock, playing the recurring role of pesky neighbor Les Calhoun. The two old friends slipped back into their natural rhythm, with Griffith again playing straight man to Knott's comic antics. By then, Knott's health had begun to decline, and he was often sick. When he was only 57 years old, he was given a troubling diagnosis of macular degeneration. It is a condition that interferes with a person's ability to see directly in front of them and makes anything in their direct line of sight appear distorted or blurry. In some cases, it can even lead to an inability to recognize faces, and it usually gets progressively worse. The diagnosis was devastating for the active performer, but he continued to work and engaged in every activity he had been doing before then. He refused to be defined by his health challenges, but eventually, his eyesight deteriorated to the point where he could no longer drive or read, severely limiting his independence. Despite these challenges, Don kept acting on stage and screen. In 1998, he had a small but pivotal role as a mysterious TV repairman in the critically acclaimed film Pleasantville. That same year, his hometown of Morgantown, West Virginia, changed the name of South University Avenue to Don Knott Boulevard on Don Knott's Day, and named him an honorary deputy sheriff with the Monongalia County Sheriff's Department. In 2000, Knott was recognized with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a well-deserved acknowledgement of his contributions to entertainment. Though his on-screen appearances became less frequent in his final years, he continued to work as a voice actor, lending his distinctive voice to projects like Chicken Little and the children's series Hermie and Friends. However, aside from being a successful actor, Don Knott was also a family man. Don's marriages and 2 children. Behind his public persona, Don Knott's personal life was complex. His friend Al Checo described him as somewhat of a ladies' man, who fancied himself something of a Frank Sinatra. The ladies loved him, and he dated quite a bit. Don was married 3 times. His first marriage was to Catherine Metz, whom he met in college. Metz, the daughter of a Northern Baptist minister from Wheeling, West Virginia, dated Knott for 2 years before they married in her father's church in 1947. Though they were together for 17 years and had 2 children, Their marriage ended in divorce in 1964. 10 years after divorcing Metz, Don Knotts found new love. In 1974, he married his second wife, Laura Lee Tsukna. Their marriage lasted until 1983. Throughout their years together, rumors circulated suggesting that Knott's declining mental health posed challenges to their relationship. According to reports, his struggles with depression negatively affected their relationship. His daughter Karen has spoken about her father's mental health challenges, saying he was mercurial and had a lot of different kinds of moods. He fought a lot of depression and had this endless loop of thought that would always lead to a downward spiral. Laura Lee later said that it was Don's diagnosis of macular degeneration that led to the end of their relationship. Fast forward to almost 2 decades, Don Knott got married for the third and final time to actress Frances Yarborough in 2002, a relationship that continued until his passing. Though they married later in life, the couple initially met in the 1980s when they worked together on the sitcom What a Country, where her main job was to help Don learn his lines. Frances was in her 20s and he was in his 60s when they met, but despite the significant age difference, they found love in each other and stayed married till his passing at 81 years. After his demise, she inherited his properties, which were worth millions. From his first marriage to Kay Metz, Don Knotts' family primarily comprised his 2 children, Karen and Thomas. Their daughter, Karen Knotts, was born on the 2nd of April, 1954. Following in her father's footsteps, Karen pursued studies in theater at the University of Southern California and became an actress, stand-up comedian, and writer. She has performed in various comedy and theater productions, including her one-woman show titled Tied Up in Knots, which offers an intimate look into her life, growing up with her comedian father. The comic show was directed by Anderson Gabrick, and Karen performed it at the Edinburgh Fringe in 2008. She also performs stand-up comedy on the road. Her television and film credits include Mayberry Man, Return to Mayberry, An Occurrence at Black Canyon, One of Our Own, and the Vice Academy series. She also writes for the stage. Her one-woman play, Roger and Betsy, was nominated for the Mersey Awards in 2009. In 2021, she wrote a memoir about her father called Tied Up in Knots. After her parents' divorce, Don raised Karen as a single parent, bringing stability to her life that he had never known in his childhood. Their son, Thomas Knotts, was born on the 3rd of April, 1957, in Los Angeles. Unlike his father and sister, who lived a famous life, Thomas chose to maintain a private lifestyle away from the spotlight. As a result, there's limited information about his career and personal endeavors. Despite these personal struggles, those who knew Don described him very differently from his on-screen persona. Betty Lynn, one of his co-stars on The Andy Griffith Show, called him a very quiet man. Very sweet, nothing like Barney Fife. The tragic end of a legend. Don Knott became very sick in the early 2000s and was diagnosed with lung cancer. He eventually passed away at the age of 81 on the 24th of February 2006 at the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles from pulmonary and respiratory complications of pneumonia related to lung cancer. He underwent treatment at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in the months before his passing, but returned home after reportedly feeling better. Andy Griffith was among the last people to visit him. His health continued declining till his sad passing. Even in his final days, Don's innate humor remained. His daughter Karen shared a poignant memory years after his passing. He had this funniness that was just completely, insanely natural. When he was dying, he was making us laugh hysterically. He was dying, but he did something, or said something, that caused my stepmother and me to go into fits of laughter, which is why I ran out. Karen later regretted leaving her father's side to laugh, wishing she had stayed there to have a loud laugh with the famous comedian. Don Knotts was buried at Westwood Memorial Park in Los Angeles. In his obituaries, he was cited as a major influence on other entertainers. In early 2011, his grave's plain granite headstone was replaced with a bronze plaque depicting several of his movie and television roles. Don Knott's houses. Don Knott owned several houses during his lifetime. Some of his houses were the Colonial Revival House in Glendale, California, and a condo in Beverly Hills. The Colonial Revival House was built in 1934, but Knott bought the house during the 1960s, about the same time he featured as Deputy Sheriff Barney Fife in The Andy Griffith Show. This 3,213 square foot home had 3 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, a breakfast room, and distinctive architectural details such as wood-beamed ceilings and a decorative fireplace. After his passing, rumors spread about Don Knott's former home, with some claiming that it was abandoned. The Colonial Revival House in Glendale remained in the family's possession before eventually being sold at $1.295 million in 2013. The sellers had purchased the house at $600,000 in 2003, so they had a gain of $695,000 before taxes, commissions, carrying costs, and renovation expenses. The last home Don Knott owned was a condominium at 1854 South Beverly Glen Boulevard in Beverly Hills. The 3,289 square foot condo was built in 1981 and had 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. Don Knott bought the house in August 1983 for $338,170. After he passed in 2006, it was sold in October 2007 for $1.23 million. Therefore, Don Knott's former residences are not abandoned, but are currently occupied and maintained by the new owners. Net worth and legacy: 125 to 132. At the time of his demise in 2006, Don Knott's net worth was estimated to have been more than $20 million. This wealth was accumulated through his successful career in television, film, and stage performances. Don Knott left behind a legacy that is as enduring as his substantial net worth. His enduring legacy ensures that his work continues to generate revenue, even posthumously. Don had a successful half-century acting career that included 7 television shows and more than 25 films, along with 5 Emmy Awards just from The Andy Griffith Show alone. He was also recognized with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2000, and his hometown of Morgantown, West Virginia, renamed a street after him in honor of his talent and impact in television comedy. In 2016, a statue created by Jamie Lester was erected in his honor in front of the Metropolitan Theater on High Street in his hometown of Morgantown, West Virginia. Knott's influence extended far beyond his performances. His highly physical brand of acting, at its best, drew comparisons to silent film greats such as Buster Keaton, Stan Laurel, and Harold Lloyd. On the plaque of his grave it was written, "He saw the poignancy in people's pride and pain and turned it into something hilarious and endearing." Which of the television shows Don Knott starred in is your favorite? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.